Member Matthews, are you able to call the meeting to order?
Yes, I am. I would like to call this meeting to order and apologize for the late start due to technological difficulties on my half. And I will hereby turn the chair over to Member Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair Matthews. The meeting being called to order, I'll proceed to the approval of the agenda. All wishing to approve the agenda, or motioner seconder, please. Thank you, Member Wickens. Second, Member Dubik. Is there any changes anyone would like to see on the agenda at this time? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? All against? All abstaining? Motion carries.
Well, I vote yes.
Thank you, Chair Matthews. Item 3 would be declaration of pecuniary interest. Do any members have any items of pecuniary interest they wish to bring to the committee's attention at this time? Seeing none, I'll approve.
Could you please speak up, Emmett?
Sure. I'll see if I can maybe turn the mic up. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, a
Well,
little bit.
it's at max now anyway, so I'll just try to speak up. Great. So as to the adoption of minutes, I'll open the floor to motions regarding minutes of 0422. Thank you, Member Wickens. Moving to approve, and a second from Member Campbell. Any discussion, amendments, changes to the minutes before we approve them? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? All against?
I'm in favor.
All abstaining? Motion carries. And we're on to items for consideration. Looking to item 5.1. There are 2 council resolutions to look at today. I will open the floor to motions to receive those resolutions for information.
Nancy Matthews so moves.
Thank you, Member Matthews. I see second by Member Dubik. Any discussion on these? It seems like council roundly upheld the recommendations of the committee in those 2 instances. Any other discussion here?
I can't find the agenda, so I'm just happy to follow what you're saying. It wasn't anything urgent on anything.
No, just that there was a motion at council regarding the direction of staff in the revised draft for heritage tax rebate bylaw, carried in the language that we had recommended, and secondarily from 7th May regarding working with the Markdale Jubilee Committee, also carried. Any
So
other
that's what we
questions there?
discussed, and
Yeah,
I'm very happy it's finally going forward. The faster, the better.
Member Halliday?
Oh, yeah, well, it was just a question. Has that happened yet? Is Nancy working with the Jubilee, et cetera? So
I think there's more on that to come.
is
Stuart.
there? Okay.
Hold tight, I think. Yeah, thanks.
I missed that. Sorry.
I'll call the question on the information and
That's
all
fine.
that. All in favor? All against? All abstaining? Motion carries. And we'll move to the update on tax rebate for designated properties. There is an update provided by Clerk Van Elstein or Fines Van Elstein. And we entertain motions to receive that update for information. Member Wiggins and Member Campbell. Any discussion on this? Seems like we're getting pretty close. Seems good.
What issue are we talking about? I'm trying to load the calendar, but my computer is still being very difficult.
No worries. So the update from the clerk is that at this point, the bylaw has been drafted as per instructions by council April 16, waiting on approvals at department and comment
Oh,
before
right.
the council.
You updated the specs. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
So
So
we're just
that's fine, and it looks like, yeah, that answered Stuart's question. But she's hoping to get it to council in September.
Yep. Member Duick?
Thank you. And maybe just a quick comment. So first off, I just want to thank staff for the update. So it's just very helpful to be able to manage people's expectations because there are many in the community that are very eager to get this rolling and into play. And just as a reminder, the in the second paragraph in that update, the email from a heritage property owner, the intent of that was asking for the tax rebate to be retroactive for 2024 and 2025, but that will be then in front of council for decision. But again, thank you to staff.
Yep. Thanks, Member Duick. Any further comments or questions on the update there? I'll call the question. All in favor? All,
Thank
all
you.
against. All
There,
abstaining.
I finally have the agenda.
Motion carries. And we're on to item 5.3. I will entertain motions to receive 2025 Ontario Heritage Conference report for information.
Maybe I should move that since I presented it.
Sure. So I've got you as second to Member Halliday. And you want to give us your report, Nancy?
Well, I sent it out a few days earlier. If you read the thing, it was very, very comprehensive. I guess just sort of verbally, it was a very valuable session. And a lot of the takeaways that I got, Prince Edward County it has very successfully used restored heritage buildings, especially restored barns and farm properties and so forth, for some really interesting tourism attractions and economic development. And I could relate that to our area. We get a lot of people going through our area all the time. And giving them reasons like that to stop would be of value. So some of the things that they've done are just amazing. And they've well, like Stuart was talking about moving that church in Maxwell because it's not being used. And that they moved heritage buildings and created like heritage villages out of them, and all of those things they're just good lessons in going back there. I have a relationship now with it, the people that I worked with down there. So if something comes up around here that kind of reflects on some of the stuff that was going on down there, I can I could probably get some help or some input, rather than us always reinventing the wheel. So I thought it was a really good conference. And I just wondered if anybody that read through that report had any questions about anything that they read or wanted any further update.
Seemed great. Nice and sunny. Member Campbell?
Thanks very much. And
I should also speak. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to ask Nancy, I don't know if you put that document together, but whoever did, thank you very much for that. I found it very helpful and insightful. Just a couple things that I, pulled out of it that I think is sort of worth thinking about, at least from my perspective, is, the idea of the sort of linked ideas of treating heritage properties as an economic asset to try to drive economic development and be an economic driver for the community, and the idea of adaptive reuse to sort of facilitate that, I thought was brilliant. and also there was something in there talking about how, some of these properties might be able to be used for housing, from a social housing perspective as well. In this kind of environment, also thought that was fantastic to see, and something that maybe we should, consider as we go forward. And then the only question I had on that, Nancy, it mentioned, so the I guess the venue that you were at, Base 31, I think it was purchased by, I guess, the PEC community partners, and it mentions that like there was an airport involved. Do you happen to know, is that like an entirely private venture, or was there some participation from the municipality or anybody like that from a public side of things as well?
Yeah. That was an amazing, I mean, there were places on that site I could send pictures that, I mean, buildings are just falling down, there's grass growing in the roof and all that kind of stuff. And basically it had been abandoned since not long after the, maybe like the early 60s kind of. I think they kept it after the war and they were still using it for returning troops. And, during the early Cold War, they were still training people there. But then it basically was just abandoned and it had grown over. And then one or two people had just sort of taken a building and yeah, so it's a private purchase and it's a private company. But having said that, they work really, really closely with the municipality. There's all kinds of little businesses on that property, like using half of a lot of old dormitory buildings and that kind of stuff, and they'll take like, 2/3 of one of those and wall it off and create a room. One of the rooms that I staged a meeting in wasn't very big, but it had been modernized to have a meeting room, a screen, a couple of bathrooms, and you could plug in a coffee maker and that kind of stuff. So it was really fascinating. It's just going on and on and on, and they are doing affordable housing there. And the people that live there will have access to community gardens, that kind of things. And I mean, the biggest lesson I think to be learned, and maybe in this municipality, like where we have buildings that have been abandoned, like extra municipal buildings that aren't being used, thinking about what they can be used for, it is really worthwhile. And there was an article in next year, there's going to be a lot of stuff about that, using industrial properties and stuff like old factories and so forth when we get to Hamilton. So
Great. Any other comments, questions for Nancy? Member Duick?
Yeah, I'll just echo Member Campbell's comments of, this is a really well-prepared summary. So thank you, Nancy, for providing this to us, because even though, not everybody's able to go, having this report coming back to us is so valuable, and it's almost like being at the conference. So, really excellent and inspirational as well, as we move, our work forward, and council will be receiving this report as well. And so it's, all these messagings are so good because there is all these intertwining efforts, with heritage and our economic, efforts and, housing, etc. So excellent. Thank you so much.
Well, and what was also very obvious, and is things that I've been promoting for a long time, having a heritage downtown street like they do in Picton, and an old theater that, we went to for the concert, the Mohawk choir concert and so forth. That was all very, you're walking down the street practically tripping over parking meters because you're so busy looking up at these beautifully preserved buildings. And, but it takes some municipal guidance in that. And, much as I've always been happy that we have the Main Street Revival program, there's never been any heritage input into that, and some of the things that are happening. Yeah, the buildings get cleaned up, but they also are covering up heritage facades in important buildings, and that's it, much as it's good in one way, it's harmful in another way. It's not preserving a heritage and bringing it to the forefront. And there could be a little bit more of that. But that has to come from council and the community.
Thanks, Nancy. Member Duick?
So really great points, Nancy. And if there's any ways that we see this Heritage Committee, providing recommendations to maybe help push any of those kinds of ideas along too, that would be really great. But thank you. Those are great comments.
Well, actually, when they started the program, I did try to do a little bit of inputting in the decision at that time by council and by the people who were, on staff and working on the program. They didn't want to create any kind of barriers or hurdles. They really wanted owners to, get things fixed up. So they didn't want that input, but maybe now that it's up and running and that it's starting, maybe now is a time, and I like what you're saying. Maybe now is a time that maybe we could maybe we should make a decision based on our discussion here to create a presentation to council saying, going forward, we'd like to recommend, and it just happened in Flesherton too. One of our big problems is a lot of our heritage buildings aren't even listed, let alone designated, and there is no control over what owners do on those buildings, and they've just covered up. And I mean, yes, the brickwork on the old Ford dealership at the corner in Flesherton needed work, but now it's been all covered with black plywood or black tongue and groove, and it doesn't look horrible, but it no longer looks like a brick building built in 1908, which is what it is. So anyway.
Right. Final thoughts for Nancy?
But if you want, I don't know. Well, I don't know, does the rest of the committee think that is something that we should maybe move forward with as make a report that can go to council? Or do we suggest it from this meeting, based on discussions out of what happened? Can we do it that way, based on discussions that, surrounding what we learned about how heritage preservation has really positively impacted the Picton and PEC economy, to, consider, heritage preservation as part of the Main Street what's it called? Facelift improvement plan, whatever it's called, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
To consider, heritage attributes be considered when planning these so what's it called? Facade improvements, I think is what the plan is for.
Member Halliday?
Yeah, I would support working on some ideas because obviously we've had quite a few ideas over the years. I go back to the 2005 vision, which Nancy was part of, which was community driven, and we had some help with from the provincial government. So there's been a lot of things happening over the years. In fact, the economic development officer from Prince Edward County actually came to one of our meetings and spoke. So we're well aware of some of the things that Prince Edward County is doing over the years. And so there's a lot of thoughts. I don't know whether you want to strike a subcommittee on that concept or not, but I do believe that we need to make a few things happen in 2026 in the fact that we will have our first anniversary, our 25th birthday on January the 1st, 2026. And if we go back to the original official plan, is one of the things that the original mandate was to have heritage committees and economic development committees. So there was being thought of when this was was formalizing itself. So it's 25 years later. I think we need to sort of figure out how we're going to move forward in the next 25 years. I'm not going to be here that long, but I'd like to have a little bit of input and do some thinking about it and perhaps make some difference there.
Thanks. I'll go to Member Matthews and then we'll call the question. Member Matthews?
Well, I guess my question is, it's all very well to say, oh, prepare a report, but preparing a report, then it has to come back to the meeting 3 months from now. Then it won't get to council till probably just before Christmas, and by then we'll already be in 2026. And, 2026 is, I believe, an election year, correct?
Yep.
So, so after September of 2026, we will not be able to do anything except urgent stuff because of the council elections going on, and the whole committee has to be reset, reapproved, following the all of our terms expire in 2026, I believe.
Right.
Okay. All in favor of receiving.
So I guess, so the question is, the question is, do we say create a bigger report, or do we send it forward as a suggestion? And when it gets to council, if they want more information, which just suggest that they please look at this video, see what the benefits are, and suggest that we go forward with heritage input, rather than creating a huge report. And I think Danielle probably has a better idea of how what direction we do this,
Yep. So, sorry. So we just have a motion on the table. Going to call the question on receiving the 2025 Ontario Heritage Conference report for information. All in favor? All against? All abstaining? Motion carries. I'll just leave the floor open for a couple seconds. It sounded like, Nancy, you wanted to maybe make a motion. If you'd like to do so, please do so now. Clerk Thompson.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Ferguson, I do think that perhaps amendments to the community improvement plan or recommendations from this body to make amendments to the community improvement plan is a separate item than what was on today's agenda. And I do think that if the committee wants to have a discussion on that, we should have more information in front of the committee before we ask the committee to make a recommendation to council. So I would suggest that that's something that could come to a future meeting.
Yeah, and it seems to me that there's nothing preventing people working on that kind of information through our established working group kind of structure. So I'd certainly invite Member Matthews and any other interested parties to do so through that sort of lens.
There's actually a lot of plans out there in communities that do that kind of thing. So it's another thing we don't really have to reinvent the wheel on, and I can rattle cages people that I know through CHO that has become such an invaluable relationship for me. But before we leave the conference, if we're done with that section, the volunteer tips and tricks, that's a whole separate thing. That was a presentation that I largely put together, but with help from the president of CHO and from she's a clerk in the building department in Blue Water. She does the CHO news. Anyway, it was vetted by all kinds of people around CHO. And it was very, very well received in terms of, how to run a committee. I would think that it would be a good thing for our committee, for me to make that presentation to all of our committee. And I know we have to be careful about having a meeting that isn't a quorum, but when it comes to, and then there's a question for Danielle, when it's a question of education, we should be able to get together for educational purposes and not make any decisions so that people can learn what it is, and it's and then I don't know how to handle it. That was an hour and a half presentation, and everybody, well, you saw what James wrote about it in the thing. He thought it was really helpful to him as a small, a small rural community.
It occurs to me that even though this may not satisfy us for this and maybe next year, some consideration of including this kind of information and presentation as part of our terms of reference to become part of this body might be a way of doing that in a sort of roundabout way, just to sort of, it's like not uncommon when you're joining a board that you kind of have to go to board training before you are actually sort of put in the role. So this is the kind of thing that seems eminently kind of desirable for any indeed current or future members of this committee to know about. So that's maybe something to think about around the time of our new mandates next year, if not before. That being the case, I'll just move on to the update. Our next just
Stuart
for
is putting up his hand.
oh sorry, memoriality.
Yeah, that was well done, tips and tricks. Did you prepare that, Nancy?
Yes, I did.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
you're
with some help and with some input.
okay. Well, it was well done, and I saw a little bit of local information in it, so I figured that
Oh,
you had.
well, you know, I use what I've got,
I
and
understand. I appreciate that,
yeah,
that there were some local buildings in it, and so it was well done, and I think that in itself is it should go to council as a presentation of what could be done. So
it's important, I think, for council to understand, and with all due respect to everybody on the committee, council, and I've been told before by the clerk that we as a committee, and I got some interesting feedback. One of the things that's important, the most successful committees have a real cross section of people with different skill sets and different knowledge. And that is really useful. And I actually got input also, like from Blue Water, there when they need a committee member, council does ask the sitting committee members, okay, what kind of help do you need right now? Like if you've got 4 architects on your committee already, we don't need another architect right now. But boy, could we ever use somebody that understands Robert's Rule of Order, which is what Emmett does for us on this committee, and so, that kind of thing. But yeah, maybe that should go to council, just so that they also understand. And maybe if we have an education session, it wouldn't be a committee meeting. We could invite staff and council so that everybody understands. By the way, that presentation is on the CHO. That's provincial wide. Anybody in the province has access to that on the CHO website.
well, congratulations on that. Yeah.
And I think in fairness, all of these materials will make their way to council in due course. So I think we're covered.
Yeah, it's attached to this, so I guess it goes to council anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Great. So, I'm just going to try and get the next item on the table, Stuart, if that's all right. So the next would be that Heritage Greyhounds Committee receive the working group update for information. May I have a motion in this regard?
Well, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Everhelp.
I presented it. I can move it.
Great. And we'll take Nancy as second. Do you want to give us your update, Nancy?
Well, as far as the walking tours, I was invited by a member of council to do an in-person walking tour, and I guess it just all fell through. And I was given a couple of dates, and then I never heard any more. I went and had a couple of meetings with Robert Reed, and he approved my proposed route, and we talked about how we would do it, and then it just fell by the wayside. So I have no idea of what happened to that. Nobody kept me informed. And I haven't really, to be honest, I've been so busy with like doing a presentation like the one we just discussed. That takes time.
Yeah.
And, so I haven't really gotten to the heritage walking tours. Updating the verbiage that we have is not an issue. I did put my head into the council or the chamber, and they seem very interested in working with their current program, and they're trying to get things digitized and stuff. So I just wonder if there's anybody else that wants to be maybe involved in that with the chamber and take a little bit of the pressure off of off of my to-do list.
Well, I could, as former chamber member and current chamber member, I could.
Yeah, and then it's a matter of, they're gonna need real input on history and on heritage and stuff. And I know that some of that stuff would have to come from me, but a lot of it's out there just in the local history books and stuff. And, so just sort of finding a way to get to it and how to digitize it and stuff, And QR codes are amazing.
Reality?
So is it okay then if I contact the chamber
Yeah,
to?
I would, yeah, but this is just the committee. So, and Stuart, you're on
Yeah.
the working group. So what I'll do is after this meeting, I'll
Right.
see if anybody else in working group wants to be involved in that. And maybe what would really be helpful, for example, Nadia lives in Rockland, so when it's updating that part, maybe she gets involved in that, maybe Shannon or Sharon gets involved in Eugenia. I don't mind doing Flesherton. I kind of had Flesherton in and out of my brain, and actually Markdale too after my research. Or one of I know Member Campbell and Member Dwyer both live in or near Markdale, maybe they kind of get involved in that. And it's a way of learning about the community as well as, helping with whatever, so.
Great.
Yeah,
There's
fair
a few
enough.
more, a few more items on the
Okay.
working group list.
I'll use the working group. Okay. The letters to the listed properties, I will probably be looking after that until I need to deliver them. And then Lord knows I'll be hanging on everybody to, bang on doors, go talk to people, whatever. Now that I know that the bylaw, I haven't wanted to be telling people there's going to be a bylaw when it was just so vague about when, but now it looks like it's happening, and we really only have another year and a half to go. And as I said, with council sort of shutting down those kind of activities, once the election campaigning opens up next September, like a year September, as I understand it, and and we can plead defense on this, err on the side of ignorance or whatever. As I understand it, as long as council has declared the intention, and that's fine, but we may have to request that they declare their intention to designate without necessarily having perfectly formulated criteria paperwork. For if it's like 8 properties, we have the intention of designating these, and then we would have 2 years from then to get all that paperwork done, because that all takes time and it's a real process. So we don't have to have the actual designation done in a year and a half. The intention to designate has to have been declared by council. So I'm pretty sure there's a way we can work around that without making it too onerous to get all that work done if all 11 property owners say yes. We'll see what they say.
Good.
And then, the inventory, I was quite pleased about that. Jessica's back to working on things. And she's taken over the role, Ben Patey's role. Before Ben left, and he went, I think as everyone knows, moved to Ottawa for health reasons and for treatments. To be closer to treatments and to family. He had a huge binder and lists of phone numbers and flyers and business cards sort of falling out of here and there. So Jessica's taking that. She's going to try and organize it. It's a really valuable thing for us to have as a committee. If an owner comes and is looking for a permit to do something, and we want to help them, maybe in a pre-meeting before they get the permit. Well, this is the kind of materials. Have you thought about using this material? Or we've got they approach us, my brickwork's falling down. How do I, is there a good mason, that kind of stuff. We don't advertise that. We don't want to get in any kind of a fight with local business people about, looks like we're promoting one business over another. We just keep that for our use as a committee, and we can pass it on just as if you want to talk to this person, they might be able to help you. We're not necessarily promoting them but having said that, we don't pass on names unless they've been recommended to us by a heritage owner that has had work done by them and feels that it's been a successful commission of whatever was required.
Yep.
Way, and if anybody knows, and having said that, if any of you live in heritage buildings, or you know people that are fixing up heritage buildings, and you've got some names or some product information or something that you think would be worthwhile, I would love to that I'll get to Jessica to make our files as up to date as possible. Like I know when Randy French was fixing up Hickling House, he had a terrible time finding people that could do the work. And if there's no comments, then the last thing is a template for designation. That's kind of part of, because I did that tips and tricks things, was one of the questions that came out of the audience at my presentation. And I'm going to do it based on, the kind of designations that I do, but it would be a fill in the blanks. And maybe what we'll do once I get it done, especially down the road, if we do a bit of use the tips and tricks for training, that could be part of some of the other committee members, especially if we get a lot of owners that want to designate in a hurry. If I've got a template, I can ask member Campbell, okay, here's the information, because all of these properties, we have a fair bit of information, but there needs to be a little more digging and working with the owner to get the criteria. But if you have a template of how to do it, then you basically erase name of building and put in Euphrasia City Hall. You erase mailing or street address, and you put in the number and the 10th line and what the mailing address is, and you just keep going. And so make it sort of easy for other people to do that, as long as they've got the information. And if they have to dig around with other members on the committee to help them find the information, then that's what the committee's for.
Yep. Any comments, questions for Nancy about the working group stuff? Good. I'll call the question. All in favor? All against? All abstaining? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 6, which is members' privilege. Do any members have anything they'd like to raise for the committee at this time? Member Halliday?
Yeah, I have an announcement to make about a tea party on August the 7th at the Flesher Library at 2 o'clock. We'll be honored with the presence of Mr. Bruce Flesher, who is the great grandson of W.K. Flesher of Flesherton.
Wow. Could you have the date again for that? I want to write it down. August 12th?
August 7th, Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. We're going to have tea and maybe a few cucumber sandwiches, right, to typify a tea party.
August 7th is a Thursday, Stuart.
Oh, it's the Friday, that be the 8th, sorry. Okay. My apologies, it's the Friday.
Yep.
So he's got a friend who lives in Grand Bend that they're actually going down to Halifax and have vacation, and then they're working their way back. And so we have a meeting, I think on 10:30 on that Friday morning with Mr. Flesher and Mr. Steer, who's his buddy, at the museum. And we're going to try and review some of the...
Okay, you're frozen.
We're going to try and review some of the artifacts that we may have in our possession from Mr. Flesher. We're checking, for example, there's a seal, that he was a notary public, and a family Bible, etc. So we're trying to get a package together. And John Butler is working on a bit of a historical document with Peter Whitehead, and we want to present him with a bit of a book, okay, at that, and that will come up into the afternoon. Now we're working on, I'm not sure, the mayor, the fellow Mr. Steer contacted the mayor, and the mayor turned it over to the museum kind of committee. So I'm hoping that the mayor will be there, and that we're trying to work on maybe we don't have a key to the city, but maybe an honorary citizen kind of concept, a certificate. Okay, that would be presented at that afternoon at the Flesherton Library.
You can just whisper in the code for the museum door.
But yes.
Hey, you might want to present him with a copy of the book I wrote, because there is stuff about his ancestor in there.
Yes, I know. I realize that. And then, of course, there's the Artemisia Split Rail book. So we're going to be looking at a lot of, things. And it really, he is interested in his history. And what we're trying to figure out is how many grands away that he is. Okay. But that will sort out, I'm sure John and Peter will be working on that. So that's a little bit of a surprise that we didn't anticipate. And so it should be announced by Peter next week to join the tea party. And we're inviting, local people to come and have a cup of tea and a sandwich. So that's the news of history as we see it in W.K. Flesherland.
Well, I would like to be involved in that. And having said that, a lot of stuff is happening, and I read about it in the paper, and it's something that Heritage should have been involved in, or consulted about, or maybe, participated in. And I don't even know about it because people don't think of, contacting me or the Heritage Committee.
Well,
I don't know how we fix that.
I was saving it till this meeting because nothing is really planned yet. You understand? It's fluid. So perhaps I can have a meeting with you when we get something on paper when John Butler does his dissertation. Sorry. So
I wonder, it's Sharon, member Wickens, I wonder if we shouldn't find a nice stone that's got color that he could put up on a mantle or something, that it's actual from the ground of Flesherton.
That's a good idea. W.K. Flesher's, of course, house is no longer with us. It was a heritage property on Flesherton Pond. Okay, so he wants to see the pond and a few things like that. So I think we'll take him out to lunch and have a nice little day with him and reminisce.
Well, there is a picture of, and I think it's in Split Rail country, if you want to track it down.
Oh, I have
There
that.
is a the Flesher house. If you can track down the original of that, that would be a nice thing to get blown up, properly framed, present it to him, but have a picture of him standing on the site holding the picture. And that's a great promo.
Good idea, Nancy. I'll check the book, and if I can't find it, I'll be off giving you a call to find that picture. Great idea. All right. So thank you for your input. We've just been noodling it right now, so it's at the noodle stage. So we've committed the date anyhow.
Under members' privilege, there's something I would like to raise, and maybe over to Stuart. Huge kudos to John Butler, who is promoting all kinds of community stuff that's going on and events and all that kind of stuff. But he keeps signing his emails, John Butler from Port Law, Ontario. The road sign says Port Law, but that is a mistake. It's been to council 2 years ago. A new sign has been ordered. It should be one word, Port Law.
Does John sign it as one word?
And I don't know how to deal with.
Oh, two. Okay.
No,
all right.
the sign, when they put the new sign up, the sign says 2 words, but it's named after a town called Port Law, Ireland, all one word.
Yeah, I
It
realize
was
that.
never
Okay.
2 words. Whoever made the sign thought it was Port Law, and it isn't Port Law. But I think if John is going to promote all of our local heritage and culture, he needs to put them the right address.
I will advise him of that, and because we certainly don't have any ports in port law. So
I don't want to sound overly critical, but it just,
hey,
and
we're all friends
I
here.
really
so
almost want the
collaboration, right?
municipality to take the wrong sign down. I know they ordered a new one. It was in that big list of signs, but I don't think they've ever gotten around to putting any of those up. They're probably sitting in in a warehouse somewhere, in the works department, and
well, thank you for bringing
that
that
one
up.
needs to be changed because it's wrong.
That I'll handle, and I'll get John on point on that. Okay, so tell him that he's got to rectify his address.
Delmy also needs to tell us how many protons are in the station.
It's basically delete the space and make it a small alley. It's going to take him 2 seconds to do it.
Yeah, I know. I will. I will contact him this afternoon.
Yeah.
Any other
Super,
items of
thank
members'
you.
privilege?
Mm.
Great. Oh, member Hadley.
I won't dwell on it right now, but at one time when Nancy was on the committee and started, when we developed the HGH logo, and we actually had a lot of heritage signs that we did at Victoria Corners, etc. So just want to go back and sort of review where we're at on that, but not today.
All right. So our next meeting is scheduled for October 28th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. It will again be virtual, and I will entertain motions to adjourn. Member Wiggins? Member Dubik? All in favor? All against? All abstaining? Motion carries. We're adjourned. So
I'll put my picture on so I can wave bye-bye.